The Cuyahoga County Finance and Budgeting Committee meeting for Monday, April 2nd, 2018 will come to order, and I would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Calling the roll, Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is absent at the moment. Ms. Simon. Here. Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Schron. Mr. Schron is absent at the moment. Ms. Brown.
Here.
We have a quorum. I also like the record to reflect that Ms. Baker is in attendance.
Thank you very much. And the next item on the agenda is public comment related to the agenda. Has anybody signed in?
No, no one has signed in.
Okay, and I would note that Councilman Jones is here and will be walking up momentarily. And the next item on the agenda is item number 4, approval of the minutes from the March 19th, 2018 meeting. Those minutes are in your packet. Does somebody have a motion relative to those minutes? It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from March 19th, 2018. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda, we have one item referred to the committee, Resolution 2018-0076.
Resolution number 2018-0076, making award on requisition number 41251 to RSM US LLP in the amount not to exceed $515,000 for the third-party assurance assessment services for components of the county's enterprise resource planning system for the period 4/17/2018 to December 31st, 2019.
Okay, this is a very important contract. This is the administration's third-party assurance assistant for the ERP project, and I turn it over to Director Kennedy to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dennis Kennedy with the Fiscal Office. I'm accompanied by Michael Young from Information Technology. I'll just give you a little background first on the process that we entertain to come up with the final result of this recommended contract. The county issued a request for proposal dated November 30th, 2017 for ERP readiness, specifically in the area of testing and deployment to production. These consulting services are often referred to as independent verification and validation services. The county's RFP requested the following from respondents: proactive assessment and confirmation that project governance is followed, deliverable documentation is comprehensive, all business and technical components are in place, and the county is organizationally positioned for a successful ERP implementation. It was our objective that the selected vendor would work collaboratively in partnership with the county, its ERP steering committee, and its implementation integrator and other third-party vendors throughout the initiative to achieve the third-party assurance requirements. So the process that we went through as a result of the responses we received from the RFP were as follows. We received 3 responses to the RFP. The responses were received from the following vendors: Barry Dunn, Plant Moran, and RSM. The steering committee members or their representatives vetted each proposal and ranked them accordingly. Each vendor was invited to make a formal presentation to the selection committee. Each vendor was evaluated based on the following criteria. We had the body of the proposal, which included proposed solution, scope of work, project management, performance evaluation, accountability, and outcomes. The work schedule, the vendor qualifications, staff qualifications of those vendors, their proposed budget for the project, and terms and conditions as stipulated by the respondents. RSM was selected by the committee put together to review all the proposals. It was then discussed with the executive steering committee that's been assigned for this project. The committee was impressed with the written and oral presentation that RSM provided us. The following are some of the reasons, not all, but some of the reasons the committee felt RSM was the best choice for our purpose moving forward through the conclusion of the ERP. They've had extensive experience with Infor, and that includes working in the cloud. This is a cloud-based system, so they're familiar with that focus of implementation. They have a lot of public sector experience. They are mental health external auditors, for example. They provided the best answer to how they work collaboratively with council's consultant, Zico. They have an experienced, stable team that's worked together successfully on several projects. The RFP response itself and the oral presentation that was given to the selection committee met all the key points that were outlined in the RFP. The presentation focused on all key work streams. That's EAM, finance, HR, and information security. They have a very good risk management software package that will be used extensively and accessible to our team members and management. The software provides a dashboard and real-time results of their reviews. They emphasize in their presentation data extractions and data cleansing, which is an important component of this project. They understand the role of the internal audit department in development and how to incorporate their services from this point on in terms of design and development. And overall, we considered them to have the best of the three proposals that we considered. I would turn it over to Mr. Young. He can give you a little background in terms of what the benefits of this contract are, and maybe highlight a little of the differences that exist between the administration's third-party assurance contract and that contract that's already been approved by council for its own purposes. So,
Thank you. How do you spell your last name, sir?
my name?
No, yours.
Young? Why are you?
Young, okay. Okay, fine. Okay.
So an overview of the services that were agreed upon through the RFP was provided to council. You can have them in there, and we can field any questions either today or another day. Thank you. Should you have any. The agreement of the deliverables are structured around the current ERP project phase schedule that was shared with council during the last update. The payment is broken down to coincide with each of the phases of the project, with 30% due at the kickoff of the phase between RSM and the steering committee, and 70% due upon sign-off by the steering committee that the work for that phase has been completed to the steering committee's satisfaction. The contract with RSM is for $515,000. The budget for this project is $600,000, and the term is carried through December of 2019 to cover any potential delays in the project. So, any questions?
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I'd like to welcome our council president. Thank you for joining us. And I have some questions, but before I ask mine, I'm going to let my colleagues go first, and we're going to start with Councilman Tuma, followed by Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. Just a quick question to either gentleman is why now, as the administration decided to go through with getting a consultant, waiting this long, and what precipitated the decision to engage a consultant?
Councilman, this contract realistically should have been in effect at the beginning of the project. It was something that was discussed pretty extensively on the steering committee level. I don't really have a good answer for you as to why we didn't move forward. I know when the project governance phase took place in the past several months, and some of the changes related to that, that I was emphatic that this particular contract had to be in place. But it should have been in place a while back. The general overall purpose is to give us an independent assessment of where we're at and to give us recommendations on how we can overcome any obstacles that come up, particularly during the testing phase of this project. It's very important that somebody independently reviews how the test scripts are designed, how we go about putting together programs to do that. But it's something that was originally budgeted for fairly substantially at the beginning of the project. And I would have hoped it would have been in place at that time, but I think it's This particular juncture, with what we have left to do and the way that the project governance has changed, I think it's imperative that we get some third-party assurance contract in place as soon as possible.
Okay, I appreciate your candor with that. I just have one further question through the chair, if I can. I see the contract runs through December of 2019. We've already had some delays with respect to the ERP implementation. Do you anticipate this consulting contract going beyond the end date at this point, the termination date at this point?
I do not myself, no. I think that contract termination date is fairly reliable at this point.
Okay, because again, if it's been budgeted, we want to make sure that we maintain that budget amount and not go too far beyond the scope of what we're trying to do here. So, okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Gallagher.
And this was budgeted into the cost of the program, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it's a lot under what you anticipated.
Well, originally, the third-party assurance portion of the budget before the project was underway was approximately $4 million for the life of the project. Because we did not engage in this contract up until this stage, because we're a year plus into the design, development, and implementation, we set the parameter when we issued the RFP at approximately $600,000, but they gave us the best price of the three in relation to what their presentations covered in terms of their services. So it's roughly about $515,000, so it is a little under
Right.
what the revised budget was.
And did Mr. Rourke participate?
He did in this particular selection process, yes, sir.
And what influence did he have, in your opinion, on the outcome of this?
I don't think he had any individual influence. It was a collective decision of all the folks that participated in the scoring and review of the hard copy responses and the presentations. And it was discussed thoroughly amongst all the steering committee members. So I don't think there was any kind of undue influence on it.
And will there be monthly reports from this company to you and the executive, and will they be shared with the council?
Our intention is to have a regular reporting. That's subject to what particular point in the project they come in. We're forecasting right now they would come in at the beginning of May. But we do intend to have a regular reporting cycle, and those documents will be available to anybody.
Does regular mean monthly?
I would hope we would at least start initially with when they first come on site, that we would probably have them issue some kind of status reports every 2 weeks, and then we'll determine the frequency of that moving forward.
Okay, it says here rankings. Are those just a little, 2 and 3 just backwards?
I'm not sure which document to.
This, you have RSM at 84, Barry Dunn at 82, and Plant Moran at 77. You have Plant Moran second and Barry Dunn third. I just didn't know maybe if they were juxtaposed.
No, those were the correct scoring, so I did.
Okay, so it's just, okay, thank you.
Okay, next we have Vice President Jones, followed by Brown.
Mr. Young,
And-
since we're coming in about a year into the project, do you plan to do any assessing or validating of what has been planned to this point and what has been implemented?
Part of the original statement of work that I wrote with RSM when I came on board of the project is we're going to go back and revisit any deliverables that we would have crossed. For example, EAM with Public Works, which is done. We'll go back, do a postmortem, reassess the testing, communication, training, et cetera, and the deployment to see if there's any lessons learned that can then be used in any of the deployments going forward.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Brown
Excellent answer, thank you.
and Ms. Simon.
Thank you. My question is about the recommendations from the steering committee, and I asked about this, I think, at the last committee meeting when there were recommendations made, and apparently were never followed through. And this is another example of the recommendations not being followed through with. This one in particular about the consultant early on in the process, there was a recommendation, and somehow it just got stonewalled. what kind of assurance can we have that recommendations from the steering committee are actually going to be followed through with, if you can even answer that at this level?
I'd be happy to answer that, Councilwoman. I think that collectively, we have agreed that we need to get this project done. And the only way to do that is to work collaboratively, not only with the consultant, with council's advisor, with the staff. So I can assure you that from this point on, any of the recommendations that come through that are decided by the project's governance structure will be followed through, that there won't be any wasted time or effort. And I think I'm comfortable in saying that we'll live up to that from here on in.
So do you know if there'll be in writing any of the minutes or notes from those steering committee meetings that we would be able to look at to make sure that if recommendations A, B, and C are set forth, that we can follow up as a council at these hopefully monthly meetings, see that they're actually being followed?
I'm sorry, you're talking about
For the steering committee.
moving forward, or-
Yes,
moving forward, yes, there are minutes to those.
Okay.
We will post those on a shared site. As the past meeting minutes will be posted as well. And we have an open invitation to council's consultant to join all those meetings, either in person or by phone. So everybody's going to know what is discussed at that level and what the outcome and the expectations of those meetings are.
No, I appreciate it, and I know Zig's going to be in there now. Just want to make sure things are transparent. Thank you.
Okay. Director, at the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned 4 main things that we expected to get from this contractor. One was review of deliverables. Second was business and technology. Third was positioning us for good implementation of the ERP, and there was one more. Can you tell me what that was?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The first one was a proactive assessment and confirmation that the project governance that's in place now is being followed throughout the project at all levels.
Okay. And we know, as has been previously stated, that this was something originally intended to be started some time ago. But my question is whether there was any benefit to being able to select this vendor with some knowledge of what we're already experiencing in the field in terms of beginning the process of implementing the system.
I think, Mr. Chair, from a personal standpoint, I would have preferred that we would have had this contract in place at the start, because it would have given us some kind of independent assessment of where we're at with various stages. At this particular point in time, I think, as I said earlier, I think it's imperative that we get something in place so that we're getting a realistic, independent assessment of where we're at. When people ask me what's really behind this, it's for somebody else to come in and tell, from our standpoint, the administration, what's really going on with the project. I mean, if you ask me at the end of the year if our financial statements are good, I'm probably going to say yes, but I think you want somebody independently to come in and corroborate that and validate it. That's really similar to what this contract is for, so that they can come in and make sure that there's no biases, there's no misdirection, that everything's transparent, and that when we're presented with information that says, hey, maybe we're off track here, or we need to do something different here, that we can make sure that that's followed up on and done, as opposed to relying on the internal staff folks to take care of that, because everybody has their own interests and agendas in terms of what's going on and what's getting done. This will help us focus totally on getting the project complete from this point on.
You mentioned that the original budgeted amount for third-party assurance was $4 million, and we're now down to $515,000. My question is whether the scope of the third-party assurance was reduced by that amount, or was some of the work that was originally planned to be done as part of third-party assurance, was some of that work done in-house?
Mr. Chair, from a non-technical standpoint, probably a little of both. We're so far down the road in terms of the project development that those additional costs that were allocated amongst the $4 million budget would have been used for those kind of oversight reporting responsibilities for the past year. So that would have translated into a pretty substantial amount of money. We did try to accommodate to the best we could using internal staff to independently come in and review things, but primarily the difference in the price is because we're doing it a year plus into the project.
Any further questions? Ms. Baker?
Thank you. Given that we have a council oversight, and then now we have administration oversight, and I understand that each are independent in what they do, but will there be times when those two bodies come together, maybe discuss things that they both find, or maybe one does and one doesn't? Will there be any collaboration or, any mix of time where they would talk to each other if there are concerns that arise?
Councilman, I would hope that we can incorporate both contractors into discussions and into the oversight and recommendation process. We understand there's a difference in terms of the scope of what council's contractor, their reporting entity is to you. But we're hopeful that we will use not only his company's services, but RSM to jointly impact whatever decisions we have to go from this point on. And I'm sure those two contractors can establish a relationship that's totally transparent and share information. And from this point on, our goal is to make the project work and get it done correctly. And we'll use whatever resources that are available to the extent we can. I mean, obviously, there's different positions for both those contracts, but I don't see any problem in engaging both contractors on a regular basis to give us the maximum amount of support we can get.
To follow up on Ms. Baker's question, you said that one of the reasons why RSM was selected is because they had the best description of how they would collaborate with the council's vendor. And my question is, what did they tell you they would do?
Do you have the specific responses? By any chance? I could get you those, sir. I did not bring those today.
Okay, fine.
In particular.
Anything else, Ms. Simon?
Just that I anticipate cooperation at this point and just appreciate council's decision to hire ZIG, because had we had this third-party consultant overseeing the project at the beginning, we wouldn't have had to hire our own. But I'm glad we do, because now we can have a check and a balance on this extensive process. So and look forward to that collaboration.
Council President Brady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to review, I agree with Mr. Kennedy. We would have preferred that this be at the front end. And as Councilwoman Simon said, that's why the council brought someone in ourselves. Want to welcome RSM to this team. And I think that what was lost that is not calculable is the confidence of the council in the whole project. We know how important this is. We've been working on it in one way or another for 7 years. And so I think that's what was lost, for whatever reason, no one was brought in, not just slowly, but just not at all. And frankly, it really appears that no one was going to be brought in until the council decided to bring someone in ourselves. And so, but I want to really start over. I don't want to live back there. We'll find out a lot as we go along, I assume. But we do want to hit the reset button if that's possible, and have a process and a successful project and a process that keeps the confidence of the council as we move forward. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Okay, We know that you need this, and I should have started yesterday, so I'm going to ask my colleagues if anyone would make a motion that we recommend this with second reading suspension.
Second?
Moved and seconded to favorably recommend Resolution 2018-0076 to the full council with recommendation to leadership that it be scheduled on the agenda for second reading suspension. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and it is recommended. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for your help.
Okay. Any miscellaneous business? Hearing none. Anybody else sign in for public comment unrelated?
No, no one has signed in.
There being no further business holding our attention, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.